Hello, everyone. Welcome to the inaugural session of our talk series, Pollinators of Thought, which is hosted by NAW Foundation, that is Nature, Art, and Us Foundation. Let me begin this first talk by telling you a little bit about NAW. At NAW Foundation, we believe and we see art not just as a form of expression, but as a form of inquiry that enables ecological actions. NAW is a foundation that is dedicated to addressing climate crisis by promoting awareness about biodiversity through the lens of art and design. We do this by fostering meaningful interactions and collaboration between artists and various experts with scientific knowledge to create impactful, informed art that promotes ecological awareness and inspires environmental stewardship. Our mission is to build and support a community of artists leveraging the power of creative expression and interdisciplinary collaborations to drive awareness and action for ecological restoration. The objective of this talk series is to spotlight artists that work with research based creative practices and that address environmental concerns, reimagining our relationship with the natural world. Through these conversations, we basically hope to create a platform where the artists, scientists, educators, and broader public can all come together and in a dialogue. We want to not just amplify these voices, but to also create an archive that future generations can return to for inspiration. And for this, we have an interesting format that we have decided. In place of the usual interview format, we will present 2 to 3 works by the artist. And these works will sort of anchor our conversation, allowing us to uncover their motivations, methods, and the various stories that the artists have to share with us. And finally, a quick note about myself. I am Shimul. I'll be the moderator of this series, and I'm deeply interested in the intersections between art, environment, and public engagement. It is my absolute pleasure to be in this conversation with artists whose work is shaping the way we see and act in this world. Thank you so much for being here. And on this note, I would like to introduce our very first speaker of the talk series, Medha Bhatt. And Medha Bhatt is a textile researcher, educator, and artist, as well as an advocate for sustainable approaches to craft design and education. She works on representing biodiversity and ecological concerns and for women empowerment, amongst many other things. Through her design studio First Forest, she creates upcycled art, craft, products from the household, and tailored discards. She is passionate about incorporating anthropological methods and knowledge in craft research. So, when we come to picking the artworks that we have selected for her, it was actually very difficult because I've grown up looking at Medha's work both in person and online. But for today's talk series, we've selected 3 of the works. And first that we have is an artwork that she did in the year 2004. It is one of her very earlier artworks, which she still holds very dearly to her. It's a banner for the campaign Save Our Rice. And who better to talk about the artwork than the artist itself? And with that note, Medha, if you can come and tell us more about the banner and this artwork.
Okay. Thank you, Shimul, and I would like to thank Noor for inviting me. And I feel really great to be one of the first speakers of this talk series. And I wish Noor really the best, and I hope they really pollinate the thoughts to many flowers, gardens, forests, wherever. So, yes, to start with, I would say this is really a banner, with a work of art, which is very close to me. To begin with, I would say it was not me exactly who did this. It was a team of women who I mobilized and inspired and motivated them to create this art. So, a little background on why Save Our Rice campaign and why this banner. Just after graduation from National Institute of Design, I shifted to Kerala and I joined this NGO called Tunnel, and they had just started the first zero waste program in India, which was based in Kovalam. And they were looking for an artist, designer, whatever you say, to address the textile waste which is littered on the beaches of Kovalam. because you have tailors sitting on the beaches, stitching clothes for tourists. And what they do is they take the waste and just dump it by the sea. And the tides wash them away and then again throw them back. So this was the waste which they were trying to address. And I jumped to this position of training and doing something about it because I had done my final graduation project in Kutch, where I had seen Rajput women traditionally doing applique work using their old clothes. And it was something which we all do in our Gujarati families. And I was trying to, take the same concept forward and here do it in a more meaningful way using discards, where we were also looking at the concept of sustainability and zero waste, which was really a new concept that time in 2004. And these were a group of environmentalists who were working towards environmental consciousness, sustainability. Now, they had a program which was also addressing poison farming, and they were trying to promote organic rice farming wisdom. So
Okay.
they were going to have a conference in a place called Kumbalangi, which is in the near the backwaters. And that conference was going to be the first conference on Save Our Rice. And there were farmers that were going to come from all over India. It
Mm,
was an open air conference. And what I suggested was that let us have a backdrop which tells the whole story about Savor Rice. Now, this banner became very important to me because I was a trained designer.
mm,
I had no idea about agriculture, but working with environmentalists, I was seeing what is this whole climate change, what is this poison farming that's happening using pesticides and all of that, and how they were trying to promote this wisdom, which was ecologically conscious
mm,
and practices which farmers were trying hard to revive, which is already there in India. It was nothing new, but they were trying to revive it back.
mm,
Now, I was working with these group of women who I had trained in working with tailor waste from the beaches,
mm,
and these women were later briefed by the heads of the organization about what is this whole rice workshop about, and I gave my inputs on what they can do. Now, mind you, these were women who were simple tailors who were actually stitching blouses and skirts and, bags. But I envisioned them as artists because they had the potential to bring out stories, and fabric waste is like a color box. So I was looking at this textile discard which was on the beaches like a color box, where they had nothing to lose. It was not like buying new fabric and oh, it's expensive and we have to cut. Here they just had a box of scraps and they were going to use that as color box. So in this picture, you see that they were ideating on different concepts
mm,
of what they can illustrate in the banner. So if
mm,
you see the banner, if we go back to the earlier slide, you'll see one side of the banner talks about the traditional rice fields where you would see birds and butterflies and a stream from where water was irrigated to the fields,
mm,
and you would see fishes
mm,
and the color of the water and the houses and the whole ecosystem around a rice field.
mm,
Once you come to the middle of the banner, you see a dam, which is that bracket shaped one, where through development and modernization, we had the dam come in.
mm,
And then the color of the water changed. There were no more fishes
mm,
because then they had industries coming in. And if you see fields, the fields had reduced. You don't see birds and butterflies. In fact, you see a tractor and you also see a water pump at the extreme end,
mm,
where there are pots and pots of water there, where people no longer there are wells. So, they had to wait to get water. So and there were roads that came in,
mm,
which again were, taking over the fields. So
mm,
what development was doing? So this was their expression on what is an ideal organic farm, which they
mm,
see with its practices and what it has come to today. So
mm,
this was a wonderful way of storytelling, which became the backdrop of the conference,
mm,
and very beautifully, just in a simplest manner, explained what one could think about, like a person as uh, somebody who was not from the agriculture field could even understand what this meant.
mm. I think when I looked at this banner first, I was really fascinated by so many components that are there in this banner. And now that you have narrated the story, everything just comes together. I had one small question regarding this. So, why textile as a medium? Like, what do you think textile as a medium, and especially the fact that you used all these tailor wastes that you're calling the color box? How do you think that is adding to the awareness that you were trying to spread with this banner?
Okay. A little background on these women. When we first started the training program, as
Hmm.
I said, there were simple tailors who were earning just, maybe 30, 40 rupees at the most, or 100 rupees by making a skirt or a underskirt or a blouse. Or
Hmm.
now, when I had seen in Kutch what the women were making using applique as a technique, using textile waste, they were really works of art,
Hmm.
and they had so much of meaning in them. So
Hmm.
when I looked at these women who came from underprivileged backgrounds, who had mouths to feed, who wanted to educate their children,
Hmm.
I saw them as people who could aspire to create works of art and earn more money. Now,
Hmm.
the first thing one needs to understand is that when we look at tailor discards and when we pick it up from the bins, it's something which is done by the downtrodden or the destitute community in our country.
Yeah.
So when you look at that, it's a job which is really not very happy, very, something which gives you more money. So
Hmm.
when the first tailor discards came in, the first thing that came to their mind was that, oh, we are poor, so you're giving us this.
Hmm.
Now, I, as a designer or an artist, was looking at the imagination that one can create using this. This is just a resource, but
Hmm.
you can create magic with this.
Yeah.
So that was the reason why I saw this as a color box or as just a resource which could be used to paint,
Hmm.
ideas. And what they started doing before we did this banner, they did a series of trees of Kerala. So
Hmm.
they were not artists. They were very worried that we have never taken pen, pencil, paper in our hands, never used crayons. I said, you don't need to do that. You just pluck a leaf or a flower from the garden because Kerala is so green.
Hmm.
And just you look at the shape and you cut it accordingly. So
Yeah.
they started creating a series of trees wall hangings,
Hmm.
each being sold at thousands of rupees to the tourists. So that's when they realized that, this is something which they can do. Even, just it's like they named their group as Vismaya. In Malayalam, Vismaya means magic. So
Oh.
it was a magic that was being created from something which was going to be burnt, incinerated, or thrown into a landfill.
Hmm. Hmm.
So for me, this has become every scrap of fabric actually has a lot of meaning in it.
Hmm.
And I always, being from the field of textiles, I saw a whole lot of potential. And they saw a whole lot of potential because it was economically viable for them.
Hmm.
And they didn't, it was just their artistic imaginations that were opening up and nothing out of the box. It was just from their landscapes, from their environment that they were taking as inspiration. So
Hmm.
it was not something completely alien to them.
Hmm.
And I think that did the trick. And another aspect is that applique as a technique is very versatile. All that you need is needle, a
Hmm.
sewing thread, and a pair of scissors. That's all you need. And it's all hand stitched. You don't need a sewing machine. You don't need a loom. You don't need so
Hmm.
many things things which other textile techniques might need. And
Mm.
these women and these young girls were already having some hands-on experience with working with needle and thread. So
Mm.
this was a very easy transition for us.
I think we also have one picture where they are actually doing the applique technique, and
Yes, yes. So
even the color
so
box.
here they
Is
are
good.
use.
Mm.
Yes, the box which has all, so we would segregate the colors according, the scraps according to the colors, or whether it's silk or synthetic or cotton, and accordingly, use it in the
Yeah. I was just wondering
banner.
that I actually doubt if it was not for these tailored waste and like these collected materials, it would possibly not have so many shades of color that this banner currently has.
Absolutely, absolutely. Even today, with whatever work I do, I don't think I can do that by going to a cloth shop looking for new yardages.
Yeah.
It's just
Um, that was Save Our Rice, and a work that really grounds us, quite literally, as the name suggests as well. And the banner very clearly brings our attention to the soil, the grains, the various hands that feeds us, reminding of these delicate systems that we often even take for granted. But so what I've noticed in your work that the your work with environment and ecology does not just end with these farmlands and things. They extend much beyond. And as I've known you, you have been like a very avid observer of the surroundings of every creature that lives around you, right? And with that, one recurring subject that I found in like a lot of your works while going through was the subject of birds. So that then brings us to our next artwork that we'll be talking about. That's the bird series. So I invite you to like share some thoughts about like why did you select birds? Like there's several other things in the environment. What attracted you to these creatures, and like what was the motivation behind it?
okay. So I'll take you back from the time when I was working with the same NGO in Kovalam with
Mm.
the environmentalist friends.
Mm.
They were all bird watchers also. And Kerala is so rich tropical country. I
Mm.
used to go on many of forest walks with them.
Mm.
And it was at one such walk with them in the forest that I came across this bird called the whistling schoolboy.
Yeah.
And it really amazed me. First was the name,
Mm.
and second was the call. And it really, we were in a forest, chimney forest near Thrissur, and I heard the bird. I literally felt like a boy was returning back from school, leisurely whistling away.
Mm.
Now, I just heard the call. I never saw the bird. I could not see the bird because it's tough to see birds in thick forest canopies. So
Mm.
when I came back, I opened the bird book and I saw this beautiful blue black bird.
Mm.
And as an artist, the first thought came to me, oh, what a wonderful call. Let me just create this bird.
Okay.
Then that was the first bird I ever created using textile discards, where I actually tried to match every
Mm.
color of the feathers and made it.
Mm.
But when I went on few more walks with my friends, and
Mm.
one such walk was to the Silent Valley where we were doing the bird survey, the annual bird survey.
Mm.
Now, I was very clear that I'm not a bird watcher, so I was just going there as an artist,
Mm.
and I was just going to look at the birds and know about them. Whereas the rest of the team were avid bird surveyors, avid bird photographers, so they
Mm.
were going to do the survey.
Mm.
And that's where I heard their conversations about how the Silent Valley forest is slowly drying up because it's an evergreen forest, but due to climate change, there are rampant or frequent forest fires that happen.
Mm.
The bird numbers have reduced over the years.
Mm.
And the kind of birds, the pictures that they took, and the calls that I heard really amazed me on the vocabulary that there is in
Mm,
this,
mm,
otherwise we are, from the urban cities, all that we think about is crows, pigeons, sparrows, peacocks, parrots, maybe,
mm,
but it doesn't go beyond. And here we were having a checklist of 140, birds. And
mm,
I used to go while my friends and the bird watchers were carrying cameras. I was carrying my color pencils and sketchbooks. So I used to quickly try to sketch what
mm.
I was seeing to be able to study the bird in detail.
Okay.
So that's how my whole uh, conversation with the birds began.
Mm,
And every time, every bird became a revelation to me. Well,
mm,
first, of course, was its beauty. And second was, of course, the way it called, or the way it was identified, or the way it went in flocks, or where it remained alone and solitary.
mm.
So many such things really intrigued me, and that's how I started doing the bird series, because I felt as part of the masses who also didn't know, just the way I didn't know about. There were so many birds, there were so many going extinct even before I knowing them.
Yeah.
So all these really made me itched me, and I had the beautiful color box with me. So I just wanted to do all of them, the ones which I was seeing.
Mm,
And I started with birds of Kerala because I could see them
mm.
in the forests or around me in my gardens or neighborhoods like that.
That makes sense. So, this actually covers one of the thoughts that I had right now, that what was your method of actually recording these birds? Because now there are several apps that people use. You can just click a picture of the bird and like have them recorded. But this method of you being an artist and then sketching it quickly, because I feel that birds are often also very impatient, right? They're
Hmm.
always flying away. So to
Hmm.
be able to actually sketch them when they're there, I think it must have been like a really difficult job.
Yeah, I think that was slightly easy compared to what my bird watcher friends do, because when they are counting the birds, they
Mm,
actually count the birds based on their calls, not
mm,
much based on how many they see. Now, if
mm,
you have the warblers, there are
mm.
15, 20 different kinds of warblers that you will see in a bird book.
Okay.
They are seasoned and experienced enough to decipher or differentiate one call from the other. I am not. And I can even not see, because the canopy is so thick.
Mm,
By the time you try to see or spot the bird, it'll fly away.
mm, mm,
So I have never been a very great bird watcher, but I, as an artist, appreciate. So if I go with a bird watcher friend, I feel much more
mm.
comfortable,
Okay.
because for me, it's the sketch which is the trophy, whereas for a bird watcher, it's the photograph. They
Yeah.
want that is their capture. For me, even if I get a glimpse of it and I'm able to see it and understand from my friends about their behaviors,
Mm,
then it's a great learning for me. And
mm,
that is very important to me. So
mm.
I am more of an artist than a bird watcher, because I realize I can't have such sharp ears as they have,
Yeah.
or the eyes.
Mm. So I'll move over to some of the birds that we have in the presentation. And with this one in the slide, and also moving forward, there's one question that I have, and something that I think I've heard from you in our one of our conversations earlier, that when you're studying birds, you actually it goes beyond just the bird itself, right? It goes to where they are located, from where do they come, their environment that they live in. If they are migratory birds like these, then like what is affecting them, even if they are not on the verge of getting extinct, there's several other things that is still affecting their population and all, right? So all those things also come under a lot of like biodiversity loss, climate crisis. So do you have any thoughts about some of your encounters that you realize while studying a bird, that you found out about the other biodiversity itself?
Almost with all of them, because I can't see them in isolation. I
Hmm.
mean, to see them in isolation is like looking at a specimen. but
Mm.
we are seeing them alive, fluttering, being in a canopy or under a shade of a tree,
Mm.
foraging, or like the babblers, where six, seven of them are always together as a group in the garden,
Mm.
uh, cawing like maniacs. All
Yeah.
of this says so much about where they are and how they are and when they call. So one cannot look at a bird in isolation. So
Mm.
whether, for me, it's the whole landscape that I see with the bird in it. So
Mm.
initially, like these birds are like the rosy starling on the left and the Indian pitta on the right.
Mm.
The Indian pitta was the one which I first saw in Silent Valley. And it is a bird watcher's favorite
Yeah.
because it's beautiful. It
Mm.
has nine, so many fine colors in it.
Mm.
And the beauty of this bird I also liked was the name. Like in Tamil, it is called Aramani Kuruvi, which
Okay.
means the 6 o'clock bird,
Okay.
which means it coos only around 6 in the morning and 6 in the evening.
Mm.
And that was a fascination for me because we as people have named these birds because of their behaviors.
Mm.
And the vernacular names of it really amazed me. Like in Gujarati, we call it Navrang,
No,
which
right.
means nine colors. It
Yeah.
just says everything.
Mm.
So whether it was the call or the names that the vernacular names given to these birds really amazed me. Similarly, the rosy starling, although here it's a singular one,
Mm.
but in IT, I have seen them roost as flocks and going, do those murmurations.
Mm.
And it's amazing sitting there to just watch those murmurations. So
Mm.
these were some of the encounters with the birds which fascinated me to, look at them and put them up here.
Mm.
And these encounters have so much meaning and relevance attached to it.
Mm.
And also the timings of these, when they come, when they go, the
Mm.
murmurations, when they start, which month they start. They are the first birds to migrate when they come to our continent, and the last birds to leave.
Mm.
So when they come in, you can say, okay, which season is about to begin.
Mm.
So it's amazing the whole cycle and the aspects around it, which really fascinate.
And I think I'm
And
assuming that if the bird comes in late, for instance, in a year, that also suggests a lot about the climate changes that are happening.
absolutely, absolutely, absolutely.
Mm.
And it really, like, I have a lemon tree in my garden, and I see the fantail flycatcher every year. It starts coming by October, November.
Mm.
Some days when it's late, I think, Arey, why hasn't it come yet? So
Mm.
it's not that one has to be in exotic environments to see these patterns. One can even see these patterns in our own backyards,
Mm.
and over the years realize. Like now, I'm hearing people are spotting peacocks in Kerala, which is very rare. I had not thought of it. It's a more of the bird of the dry, upper regions of India.
So the same thing about the fantail flycatcher. I have one in my garden right now who's building a nest right now. And we were actually confused
Hmm.
because we were also thinking that it would come around the months of like September, October.
Hmm.
And suddenly
Hmm.
right now it's there in the monsoon, looking for like a
Hmm.
tree with canopy to build its nest.
Hmm. Hmm.
So yeah, so a lot of wonderings that are like related to the climate and the surroundings that are related to the birds. But yeah,
Right.
so even this work of yours does speak a lot. So I've specifically zoomed in into the berries, especially because there's the orioles that are there here, and also
Yeah.
that are there. So like your work does not just consist of birds, but also depicts the sort of environment that they kind of live in. And
Right.
similarly, the next one that we have here. So this one, would you like to tell us something about this?
Yeah. This was for a client in Delhi, and he was looking at 4 or 5 birds of North India.
Hmm.
So he had pinpointed few of them, like the Asian paradise flycatcher, the robin, and a hoopoe, which is on the extreme right corner, the Eurasian hoopoe, which
Hmm.
is on the extreme right.
Mm.
And they make frequent trips to Himalayas and vacations with their son.
Mm.
So I started looking at, okay, if it is birds, then of course it's ecosystem, and we are looking at Delhi and they go to Himalayas. So I created a brief around the Himalayas. Now
Mm.
there were things which I wanted to study on, that what are the kind of birds that are there. So here there are six birds. You have the red-headed trogon, which is right in front of you.
Yeah.
So around these six birds and the plum-headed parakeet.
Yeah.
So all of these were in certain canopies. Now, what is the kind of canopy I wanted to look at here? So I was looking at the foothills of Himalayas. So
Mm.
most of these birds are either migrants or residents who are normally in the foothills of Himalayas.
Mm.
Now, to research on what kind of Himalayan ecosystem what that I would like to look at. So I was looking at the oaks. So the mighty oak would have this dark black, jet black trunk.
Mm.
And then I had been to Mussoorie and seen the beautiful rhododendrons.
Yeah.
So I wanted a canopy of rhododendrons and the misty Himalayas, when the mist settles in monsoon and even otherwise towards the winter. So
Mm.
in terms of artistic pursuit, I wanted to look at the moist
Mm.
forest. So with the moist forest, one would have mushrooms, and
Mm.
the mistiness would be where the trunk of a dark oak
Mm.
slowly fades into. So if you see, there are four trunks, and the first one in the foreground is a dark
Yeah.
jet black
Mm. Mm.
oak, and slowly it fades away
Mm.
into the mist. So
Mm.
these were the kind of things I was looking at, and of course the ferns and the orchids which
Mm.
grow. So I not only figured out the plants
Mm.
and the trees that grow there, and the kind of birds which I was looking at into in the foothills.
Mm.
Now there are a couple of things here when one works with discards, is
Mm.
that building up a brief, doing a drawing
Mm.
is all okay as an artist. Like I normally send a drawing to my client. It's just a plain black and white drawing, but I ask them to trust me with the color, because when you work with discard, you don't know what your sack has,
Yeah.
whether it has the right green or the right brown or black. I'm looking for the trunk or the colors of the leaves or the rhododendrons, the right
Mm.
red color. So they have to just trust me. So
Mm.
that's where my first ideation happens is with
Mm.
doing research. Second ideation happens in doing the sketch and the drawing, and the third ideation actually happens when I start picking fabrics for my art, and
Mm.
that has to gel together and create this very
Mm.
homogeneous or very pleasing, or artistically very invigorating
Mm. Mm.
artwork. So this one like has around 800 pieces. I didn't count them, but that's what the framer said, that it
Mm.
has roughly around 800. So one had to look at, if I'm looking at the mist here and some plants and leaves in the background, I'll look for block prints. I'll look for um, khadi fabrics. I see mist in khadi fabrics. I see faded block prints as
Mhm.
misty,
Yeah.
leaves uh, in the background.
Mm.
So that's how I build on it. So similarly with the neem tree, as I said about the lemon tree, neem tree in itself is an ecosystem.
Mm.
So when my client in Coimbatore said that she loves neem tree and her mother also loves a neem tree,
Mm.
a neem tree gets life when you have, birds, squirrels,
Mm.
even, all these little insects, all of that form together. So here with the neem tree, it has very fragrant flowers. So,
Mm.
which means insects come in, which means there'll be pollinators, which means there'll be a set of birds which are insectivores. And then they have berries, and the squirrels eat berries. There are fruit
Mm.
eating birds, the frugivores, that they will eat berries. So, you'll have another set of fruit eating birds. So, like here in this one, you have the orioles, which
Mm.
are fruit eating, and then you have the flycatchers and the bee eaters, which might eat the insects and the pollinators. of the
Mm,
flowers of the neem. So
mm,
that's how I do the research and then put everything together to create an art for my clients,
yeah.
uh, depicting the whole ecosystem.
Yeah. So even though we're calling it like the bird series where we're featuring the birds right now, but it's actually the entire ecosystem that's being represented. It's very interesting. So that also sort of brings us to the next one that we're talking about, because your advocacy for the environment that I realized through your work is not just seen in your textile works, but it's also seen in the various other ways, like forming various collectives. And in fact, the Buck Club was one of the things that came up in a conversation with you that intrigued me a lot. And then when I read upon it, it sounded like a very interesting idea. So I would not say the idea, I would leave it up to you. But okay, so with that note, as the mama bug that we call you, would you like to come upon here and tell us more about the Bug Club?
Okay. So, a little background on how the Bug Club came about.
Mm,
Uh, from 2004 to couple of years, I was working with Tunnel. Then I started my own studio in
mm,
Kerala,
mm,
and I was again addressing tailor discards, making artworks, and doing exhibitions.
mm,
Then in 2011, we saw that the municipal corporation had to stop collecting waste from each of the households
mm,
because of the landfill around near Trivandrum, which was poisoning the groundwater and also polluting the air around, which had led to a lot of crisis
mm,
in and around the villages, or I would say small towns in and around
mm,
suburbs of Trivandrum. So
mm,
that's how I started looking at my studio, where I was actually started collecting household discards of all kinds and making craft products out of it. So upcycling the product. So it was no longer just tailor discard, but all kinds of upcycled products. So I
mm,
was catering to around 150 to 200 flats in and around the neighborhood.
mm,
And this went on for a couple of years where I would go door to door collecting discards from the houses, bringing them back to my studio and cleaning, washing, and then labor of love and creating some products out of it. But
mm,
what I saw in the process was that the waste kept coming in, it was not reducing. And
mm,
I realized that this whole idea of upcycling and sustainability was not working out as a business model because I'm not able to create so many products. What if I really want to address issues of climate or environmental consciousness? It has to be by reducing our consumption and making more informed choices. So
mm,
I would do that door to door saying, please don't give your plastic bottles, use glass bottles, or, use something which is more eco-friendly. But
mm,
it really wasn't working. And my studio started mounting with a
mm,
lot of waste, and I didn't know what to do about it.
mm,
And that's when I realized that awareness is most important part if one wants to really work with sustainability.
yeah.
And as you can see by now, I am in love with nature, with trees, with birds, and everything. The beauty of nature really,
Mm,
since childhood, it's not something which has happened in out of the blue.
mm,
And I saw that if I could do the same for the children of these households, probably they will be able to make changes in their own families
mm,
about the choices they make. So that's how the Buck Club came up, where the children of those households who were giving me the waste
mm,
would come together to my studio, and we this club had a library.
mm,
We would every Saturday we would have video documentary sessions, and we would have workshops, and we would go to different gardens,
mm,
uh, sensitizing children and discovering together, because I was also learning along with them. I was also preparing. If it was a month on insects, I was also trying to, we would go with the insect book and try to identify as many insects as possible. And the whole beauty of loving nature when you are young. So
mm,
the whole idea of the Buck Club was to really sensitize children that if you love nature, if you know what's happening to
mm,
the environment today, you will grow up to make more informed choices
mm,
and be more sensitive about how you lead your lifestyle and sort of try to address capitalism by being more conscious about what you use and how much of it do you use.
mm,
So, like in this picture that you see, we were sitting in a neighbor's garden where the whole theme was around gardens, that what it means, what is a thriving garden,
mm,
why does it thrive? What if one thing of it is missed out on, then
mm,
what happens to a garden? So if
mm,
you go to the next image, we would play this thread game where firstly, you see in the center, you have all these fruits and berries and leaves and
mm,
all or a tree. And then we would try to make this entire web of how interdependent we are on each other. And
mm,
if one of them is absent from it,
mm,
then what happens to this whole web?
mm,
So we would play around like this. We would also make out of these leaves and trees, we would make little artworks out of it. We would create insects. They would also do their school projects coming here. We also used to have the metamorphosis of a butterfly, which they
mm.
could see in the studio. So my friend used to generously donate a caterpillar, and every day we would
Oh,
feed fresh leaves, and
uh,
we would see the children got to see the whole metamorphosis. So
mm,
these were wonders which I enjoyed, and so did they.
yeah.
And it today these children are graduates, and many of them that now I see on Instagram, they're
Mm,
so amazingly doing things. Like so one
yeah.
of them is a plant. Uh, he is in love with plants, and he has an amazing balcony with the way he does planting of little bonsais and all
Mm,
kinds of things while working with art and his own education that he's pursued. So it
mm,
really tells children who also fought with the resident association saying, please don't burn waste in
mm,
the
mm,
playground because we are inhaling all the poisonous gases while we are playing in the evening. So
mm,
they had a voice. And I
yeah.
think that's where the Buck Club really made a difference, where they had strength at the same time they could be children as children and be curious
Mm,
about everything in and around it in school and otherwise.
mm,
So that's where I think Buck Club was one of my really uh, big heartening initiatives, which I took forward later into different ways while teaching at NID and other places
mm,
in different ways.
mm. I think the curiosity that you were talking about being generated in this kids is like very aptly seen in this picture. I was
Yeah.
so fascinated when I saw this picture for the first time because all of their expression, not a single kid who is not fascinated by the nutmeg that you're showing it to them.
Yes, that's the nutmeg in my hand, and it was the same garden where we were sitting, where there was a nutmeg tree, and so many of the nutmeg fruits had fallen down. So I
Mm,
cut up one, and it was so amazing for them that the whole nutmeg was yellow, the
yeah.
fleshy yellow, and when you open it, you have these striations of crimson red, and then you have the seed, the dark brown seed. So
Mm,
just the burst of color inside, it was like magic. We didn't know, they didn't know what was inside, and neither did I, that this is the way it looks so amazing. So
yeah.
this spark, I think, is makes your heart really quiver and trigger. I think that really makes a difference when we grow up to look at art, ecology, sustainability, all of these things. It's no big These
Mm,
are big words, but all they need is just this expression to
yeah.
be really, feel that to be a child, no matter at which age in life, and
Mm,
feel that connect with nature.
mm, mm.
That probably says everything.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Medha. That brings us to the end of our conversation. It was very, very enlightening to talk to you. I had lots of fun. And a lot of your practices is also what Nob specially believes in, especially the examples that all of your work, whether it be material based or such participatory models like the Buck Club, uh, are like you whatever medium you use, and these works are, for me, what I think is these works are so powerful in a way that you might see them as a piece on the wall sometimes, or you might see them only as a curtain, but because you choose to work with the biodiversity that is around the client that you're working with, it serves as an active reminder that these biodiversities also exist in your immediate surroundings. And I think it is a very powerful reminder because, as in when you see the artwork, you get more curious to actually see the real bird that exists in your surroundings, right? Very similar to how
Right,
you were directly doing it with the kids in the case of this nutmeg. And that is what is like not directly, indirectly through your work, through your material based work is also being done. And so I think at the end we see that if you choose art as a medium, no matter whatever the medium, whatever the material that you use, or even if you like decide to work with collectives, if it is done with much of the intent, it can work wonders to cause and like to start the ecological awareness that many of us are actually uh, missing, I would say, in many cases, or also like are just like not aware about. But yes,
right.
thank you so much. I'm sure this would be an extremely enlightening talk for many others like me who would view this. So thank you so much
And
for joining us today.
thank you, Shimul, and thank you so much. It was wonderful talking to you and answering all your amazing, curious questions. And I really wish to thank No also for giving me this opportunity to share my thoughts, and real best wishes to all the No team and to you.
Thank you
Thank you.
so much. Thank you so much, Medha.
Thank you.